Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Thursday PD or Thursday PD. I'm Gary Garcia from the Philippines, and we have James
James here.
and
Adrianna. Hello.
okay. So let me start with my wow moments. This week it's really my wow moment is that I was bombarded with email messages. I was bombarded with messages coming from FB or from all sources of media. And I realized that there's really a big need for my country to be educated about G-Suite for education. So we are looking for more trainers in the Philippines to train other educators. I thought what I know is a very simple thing, but it's not the case here in the Philippines. So there you go. That's why wow moments. So welcome, Dave.
Hello.
Hello. You came just in the nick of time because we seem to be short of members today. So we've made up for in quality what we ain't got in quantity, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just missed what is it Jerry?
Gary, yes.
Gary.
We're just giving out the wow moments for this week. Mm-hmm. So maybe James can go ahead and tell us.
I have to admit, I was a little shocked by this, but I managed to launch my little tool, and nobody came screaming that it doesn't work, which was fantastic.
Nice one.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So it's all good. There's still a few spaces for the alpha tool if you want to join in. But yeah, I've already done. Pardon?
Is it released on our Hangout group? Where can you find it?
Yes, you can. It's literally on the screen right now.
Yes, in the comments area.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Nice.
Yeah, that's for me.
Okay, Adrianna, how about you? What's your wow moment for this week?
I don't really have a wow moment from school because it's just ticking over. But my wow moment is that I got a skip delivered to my house this week, and I've literally basically just pushed my whole house. I've lived here for 9 years, out the window into the skip. It's brilliant. It's just brilliant. Now I'm just like walking around the house actively looking for stuff to junk and throw out there. The only uncomfortable thing is that people keep coming and looking in the skip to get stuff out. Really, there's a reason they're in the skip. But yeah, totally help yourself if there's anything you can find.
Okay, let's welcome Georgina. Georgina, we're just telling everyone about our wow moments. Who'd like to go next, Dave or Georgina?
Georgina can go next.
All right. I am very excited about my wow moment. So as some of you may know, we're using the Adobe Creative Cloud products at school, and we've been challenging some of our secondary students to be experiential and explore Photoshop in different ways. So this week, some of our students were able to create 3D assets inside the Photoshop program, and not just that, but create them in multi-layers, which is normally like a higher key stage 5 or higher ed creative media activity. So that was pretty amazing. And then on top of all of that is housed through our Google Classroom, which is our school's learning management system. So it's a nice little mashup where we can then provide feedback to students collaboratively as well. So yeah, it's been a great week for that.
That's great. That's great to know. So now our topic for this evening is going back to the new normal. So are you ready to go back to our new normal?
No.
Because no one is ready. No one knows what's the new normal or how would it feel like, right? So as a parent, I have a concern about sending my kids back to school. Me, as an educator, I have a concern on my own. And we all know that the school admin has their own concern. So let me pose this question. What precautions should we take to keep children safe? So it's coming from the part of the parent and the teacher. What do you think we should do? And any tips that you can give to our viewers? Or
I think that's the big challenge. I think
Yeah.
it is really, right now, honestly, the safest thing to do is stay home.
yes,
And
stay.
I don't know how, until you've got those curves really, really flattened, you can get kids to go back to school, because, we don't know how this thing's going to mutate. There are stories of children dying. There are stories of children with complications. This isn't just the measles. It's new. It's dangerous. It's not understood, and
Yeah.
I think it's very hard to pull it in. Dave.
Yes, Dave, you have something in mind. We can't hear you.
That might help.
Okay, great.
It's not that they can magically appear in school. It's all the transportation logistics involved. So just the mass transportation from A to B
Yeah.
in itself is cause for concern, let alone once you're in school. I mean, they would have to stagger it so you only have half the school or a third of the school open. And then you're going to have then have distributed break times, and people are fit, because obviously at break times people come together, eating, dining. I just don't see the point of going back unless it's going to be, and I think it's be really poor learning. It'd be like maybe it's because I think we're kind of getting really good now at like online learning. So if then we go back to this hybrid, and it might be slightly incrementally better than a poor remote version. The remote version is pretty good, and hopefully ours is pretty good by now because we've been doing it for weeks and weeks. Then going back to this weird hybrid just seems, I just don't know what the point is.
Yeah,
Apart from just keeping up appearances so people pay fees.
Yeah.
Which may only be the only reason I can think of.
So we really don't know what will happen if we go back to school. It's like testing the waters. I'm still thinking of. I'm not sure, but my wife and I are talking about this. If we can, what if we try homeschooling for this year? Because I'm scared for my kids. I don't want to get my kids get sick. So we don't know yet. So how about everyone from Georgina, Adrianna, James? What do you think about this one?
I think. Go ahead, James.
I was just agreeing with Gary. Really, I completely understand why you'd want to consider homeschooling. And you know what? I was talking to some of the teachers yesterday, and they were saying for the senior secondary school, they're probably getting 90% of the input they would have done anyway, and they're getting a real opportunity to be mature students and to learn in their own time. So some students, I think, are thriving and possibly doing even better because there's no interruptions. The thing's delivered. It's smooth. We're supplying YouTube videos and things as well. So for some students, I think they're doing better than they would have done in school because they're not being distracted by those kids who annoy them in class and all of those kind of things, and they're not having to move around and all of those kind of things that do take out the school day. All of that fluff's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking as a school, a school is a very inefficient beast, isn't it? Traveling, logistics, meals, going between classrooms, they're all like necessary evils, but they're all really inefficient. They can be nice, and they're part of your life, part of your school day. So part of your childhood is walking to school and having lunch, and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like all bad, but it's very inefficient. So
It begs the question also for like the places that students and teachers are going to be going inside the school building. So if we think about like, I went out this weekend and I popped in to get a piece of clothing from a store, and they had totally banned the changing room. So it begs the question, are changing rooms going to be open for like PE classes? What about the bathroom facilities? That's a pretty tight place. There's only, is it going to be one student at a time? There's loads of things to think about as far as space inside the school. What are library lessons going to look like if there's just a tiny space for people to sit and listen to their stories? And the aisles for the library books may be close together as well. So what does that look like? And touching of all the different books and. So I think there's a lot of health and safety measures that need to be considered before we even think about letting faculty and staff back into the building. They need to decide that before they let us back and then say, oh, okay, tomorrow this place is banned, or tomorrow you need your gloves for this place. So it needs to be a clear system in place before even considering reopening the doors, I think.
Yeah.
So there's
our school is being very cautious, and they've said that before you can go in, you have to get approval. And this is as a teacher, and they've said you're only allowed to go to your work office area. That's it. So it really is. Yeah, it's a worry. And you know what? A lot of schools are private. You can be sued if you catch. If you catch it, I think you're fair game to be sued. And I think in America, people will be suing left, right, and center.
There's also the thing to consider about the ACs as well. Like if your school has central conditioning or whatever it's called, AC, that's central, and they decide that cannot be turned on, what does that mean for countries like ours in the Middle East that's really hot, and also like you guys in Asia that's really hot right now?
Why can't they turn them on?
Sorry?
Why can't they turn them on?
Well, they can, but it's a question that needs to be had because it would spread the germs, right?
And they need to be cleaned because they're probably not being used for months.
Yes.
There was a cinema in Malaysia, and literally it disintegrated because the aircon hadn't been switched on for months, and so all the leather seats and that all fell apart.
Yeah, and then also, if schools are tight for money, they'll be unwilling to pay AC. All again, I know,
that's one of their many concerns, the financial matters, especially if students get sick inside the school or they don't know where they get the virus, just in case there's someone in the classroom is infected. So that will be another big problem because they will close again the schools. So there's a lot of concern, not just by the parents, but also the administration of the school. Another thing is my wife is asking, what if one of the major concern of the school is, will they be charging the same amount of tuition fees or the fees that they had last year? Since most of the time the students are at home, if we will have online classrooms, and most of the time they will be having their materials at home sent by the teachers online. So there are a lot of questions popping up because of what if we have online classroom setup or a hybrid setup, like on an MWF you go to school, or on Tuesday and Thursday you go online, or it's the reverse. So there are a lot of concerns.
And basically, until we can get to a position where either we are so secure that we've bordered everything that you can't catch it, or we're in a situation where we have some kind of vaccine, it's going to be super challenging. And nobody can rightly say it's risk-free. In fact, I think most people are talking the opposite. And I know in England they're still allowing essential workers to go to school, which basically is, and the teachers are worried because those essential workers are mostly nurses and doctors who are highly exposed. And those doctors and nurses in some cases are crying because they don't want to go home because they don't want to possibly spread it to their own kids.
I totally agree with that. I have friends who are hospital workers here, and they have to stay in separate areas of the house so that they don't infect their family members. So it's also going to be a concern for some educators, if not many, who are going to be coming home not wanting to infect their family members as well, because the school will be a high contagion area, possibility of catching it.
I mean, the experts that I read in Malaysia in one of the newspaper articles said that school should be the last thing to open. And that was in a government newspaper. So I assume that must be the thinking in government to some extent, because they were consulting with the government and everything. And yeah, it's schools have always been hybrids, and it doesn't matter when it was just the odd sneeze or cold or something, but when it's this kind of thing, yeah, we're having to do some serious rethinking.
Yeah. So like here in the Philippines, it's in the quarantine, in the policies that the government is releasing right now. The schools may open as late as August, because usually in the Philippines we open in June. So June is it's less than a month. It's 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. So we cannot open schools. So they are allowing the schools to open on August 24. But when they open August 24, there must be no face-to-face contacts, which means it's online. So when
Okay.
we open the school, it's online first. And then we'll wait for the development if the cases are going down or hopefully going down. So that's the condition now, as of now, here in the Philippines. So that's just one of the concern. So what how are we going to deal with students if, let's say, we go back to the classroom? How are we going to deal with students and observing the distance, what do you call this, the social distancing?
Yeah,
Is that
I mean,
even
that
possible?
physical distancing, as somebody who's taught primary, no way would I even think about it. Even the year sevens are all over each other, you know, touching this and that. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it's so easy, kids.
I think also as well, it's the emotional side of it. So it's not just the physical, because they've always seen school as a safe space, and we as teachers have always encouraged that sharing and caring, and then all of a sudden we're all back and we're like, get off each other, use your own stuff, don't share anymore, don't sit beside each other, when it goes against the very qualities we've been trying to instill in them the whole time they've been there.
And teachers, they also going to have to keep, you know, that 2 hours, two different. And the thing is, we're most likely to be the ones spreading it.
Yeah.
Yes, because we are dealing with a lot of students, and
and as I say, you know, since I've been home, I've noticed that, you know, we're not having the contact with anybody because we've all been staying at home and everything, and following the safe space and everything. And it's really noticeable how I'm not getting so many of the colds and sneezes that I used to. You know, I've gone like weeks without sneezing.
I think Adam says here there's lots of sense in deciding to remain online. I think, along with what Gary said, absolutely. And I think we need to consider, what does our school communities look like respective? So could there be, like in international school like myself, maybe some of the families will decide or are unable to travel back to school. So they may be learning from abroad when we rejoin in September, as well as the students that may not go back because mom and dad are worried about the health and safety, etc., as well as the students who return to school but have certain recommendations from the families, like they're only allowed to stay here for the day or here for the day. So I think we, as a school, it might be feasible for each community, each independent school, to look at what the community is actually going to look like and plan for each of the scenarios. It could be that if there is a lesson being given live, that it's recorded so that it live as well, like live streamed, for example, through Google Meet Live at the same time, so that students can receive the same lesson. And then there's also other ideas. I think, Gary, you mentioned that earlier about like hybrid schools. So this idea has actually been happening in America for a couple of years now. There's a lot of schools that are currently hybrid, where they only attend school for 2 or 3 mornings, and the rest of the day and the rest of the week is actually online learning. So schools like that are better equipped to handle the situation. And I think possibly it might be a great opportunity for us to learn from schools who are doing that, so that we can keep health and safety at a top priority. Might be a good idea.
But we talked in our school about how, rather than getting a teacher, because, you know, we went in and we tried to do it where we were like, what if we were teaching to students on a screen at home and physically in front of us? And it was just too hard to do. And so we had to start having the conversations about, well, what if you had a teacher in your year group who was catering for the online, and the other grade level teacher or in the department are catering for the physical students. And then that way we started looking at what the strengths of the teachers were, and also which teachers are in the high risk categories, because we can't put them on the front line if they're high risk. That was a big conversation we had when we talked about, are we going back to school? It was like, hold on a minute. If I'm in high risk, then why would I want to put myself, in danger? Why would you want to do that if you're into staff wellbeing? So we kind of thought maybe we need to start splitting the teachers in terms of their strengths for online or physical, as opposed to, so basically all the healthy young ones are in school teaching.
Good plan.
I love that idea. That is such a great idea, though. If we think about the teachers who were comfortable versus the ones who weren't comfortable, for example, giving the live demonstration or the demo in class, we could help meet the needs of those teachers, like Adrianna said, by having them either do in person, in class, versus virtual. I really love that idea, Adrianna. Thank you for sharing.
Great. Those are great ideas, actually. But here in the Philippines, we have a different problem. There are private schools who can do that, but a lot of schools are not very fortunate. So we're looking for a solution. We're in how our challenge is this: how
I
can
actually
we
think
reach out to students who doesn't have a stable or even internet connection?
Okay, I actually think there is a government level solution to this, and the BBC have done it in the UK, and I would say that the Philippines should actually put out TV channels so that every kid can get really good high quality content, at least some, and then just print off some, actually go back to a national curriculum and say, look, you guys, you make the TV, we want, get the best of the best teachers and get them to present. And then everybody can get on a TV at least. Yeah, Bite Size is the one, and I think that would be a very good model for the Philippines, because then the TVs can be put to that use.
James, I definitely agree with that
as
one.
well, they've dragged out the old TV presenters from the 90s or something to roll out a whole educational TV channel, because it's similar, like 30% or something of students don't have access to devices or the internet in New Zealand, which I was quite surprised about. You get quite naive about, everybody's got it, haven't they? And so they're preparing like physical packs of work for students, as well as James says, just going straight to the television. Most of them have a TV, so they can access lessons through that way. So, but it does need to be on a government level.
Yes. We have there's a TV network that really offers that one, and that is being used by the Department of Education here for the public schools. But few days ago, this network was shut down by the National Telecommunications Commission.
Oh no!
Okay.
In the middle of this pandemic, because their franquisa expired, their permit has expired. So we're trying to campaign, or a lot of Filipinos are voicing out, this is not a good time to shut down a network who's offering this. So I am not really good if I should say this, but I am hoping that the Philippine government will listen to a lot of Filipinos to let the network operate again without, I don't know how to do that, but let them operate first. So because they have all the channels, they have this channel wherein they have small chunks of unit lessons that they provide to the public schools. So that's the challenge now. The idea of James being implemented here, but few days ago, less than a week.
I mean, these things happen, and it's. I think we look around the world, and perhaps we look at the US, and sometimes we look at them for leadership, but not on this occasion. And we can see that even very basic scientific concepts are being debated over there, and being a real challenge. With China with 1.3 billion, we would have expected them to have the highest amount, but that's not the case anymore. It is the US. Yeah, Adam raises a good point. Is recording a
Yeah.
class live streaming it really counts as online learning? Well, it's online input, but it's not as good as if you were designing the whole class online. It's a bit of a mish and mash, isn't it? And I think that's what Adam's trying to get at there. I think we'd be better off concentrating on online, and then, like Adrianna says, is having half a day of coming in for the social contact.
Yeah. Or it can be if it's fully online, there can be a half an hour for each subject teacher to meet the students online synchronously, and then say hi, and just to get the feel of they are still in class, and then the rest of the time is they have individual work to do at their own own time, but there's a deadline for each task.
Yeah. I mean, our classes are fully synchronous, so we're on for the whole time, which could be up to 4 or 5 hours a day. So that's the expectation at our school.
But
that's ridiculous.
Maximum.
That is ridiculous.
Well, what we do is I tend to stay online. I'm not presenting for the whole time. So I do about 10, 15 minutes of presentation, and then I stay online. But yeah, it is that is the expectation, and that's what parents expect.
The thing is, we're learning as we go along. Like we said, that this is a reaction. This online learning and distance learning is a reaction to the situation we find ourselves in. So, at the start, I was like, right, everybody, I need to have your cameras on, please. I want to see your faces. This is really lovely. I need to see you. And now, as more research comes out, it's saying, you get the Zoom fatigue. You get the element where it's actually really tiring to see a lot more faces on the screen as well as your own. You're staring at yourself way too much in a day when you're online. And so it's that kind of thing where now I don't push the students to turn their cameras on. I'm saying just give me a shout out in the chat. I actually encourage them to unmute and talk to me because it's just I'm getting fed up with that all the time. Can you see me?
I have to say, I've not encouraged the kids to mute at all, and for my classes, it's been fine up to about 18, 20 kids because they know when they need to mute and when they don't.
At the beginning, they all needed to be trained, primary and secondary. You just needed that, getting used to that, and same with teachers. Teachers even had to get over that. So it was all of us. You've seen all these sort of videos, these parody videos and stuff. So we all had to learn how to do it. And now as we go on more and more, it's like, you know what? I don't really like the silence. Do you want to unmute? And, you can just talk to me until we start talking over each other, and then we'll go back one step further. So we are kind of learning as we go along about what works and what doesn't work. It's just flying by the seat of our pants most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I think the other thing I agree is that I don't look at the screen the whole time anymore. Once I've done my presentation, I stop looking. I go back to just audio. So I ask the students just to speak up when they've got a question, and that works really well because then I can track their work on a different screen, and I'm not looking at myself the whole time. Because otherwise, I think I would go crazy if I looked at myself for 4 hours a day.
Yeah, and it's also a good point too for connectivity. I can't tell you how many webinars I've been on where the hosts were saying, "Can you please, pause your video because it's interrupting my connection." So I guess that's going to also support students who are having internet connectivity issues at home as well.
Let me share something. My wife and I, we run a play school here in our place. So we usually offer summer classes, and now we're offering it every day for ages 2 years old to 4 years old, or sometimes 5 years old. We're not very sure about this plan, but it is working. So what we have done is we meet online using Google Meet, and then on the first day, everyone's microphone is turned on, but we realize it's chaotic. So take note, these are 2 to 5 years old. They don't know yet how to operate the computer. So we ask the parents to assist them, or an adult to be with them. And then, so on the next day, we had before the start of the meeting, when they go to the Google Meet, there's a reminder. So keep so basic reminders on when you're going for an online meeting, and it works. And then we'll tell the kids, okay, can you please unmute your microphone and say hi to your classmates? So so everyone is doing that. And then for because I saw this question. I think I'm worried about the students that are doing nothing, because the kids are really I think they find it weird that they are not in class but they are with their classmates. So whatever instructions we give, they are following. For example, kindly prepare this material. So everything is being given to the parents ahead of time. So during the class, all the materials are ready. So and then okay, so teacher will let's do this activity now. Let's have the octopus using the tissue roll. So kindly paint the tissue roll. Okay, so everyone's doing that. They are all cutting. Okay, everyone's finished. No, so they do that. But in that way, you can see that the kids are working because everyone is working. And then if they have a question, they will just unmute the microphone, or because the parents are always there, or a guardian is always there. So we find it effective even for kids, but there is always an adult supervision. So our class lasts for an hour, or sometimes an hour and 15 minutes. So it's every day. We're done with the first week, and we're on our second week and a half. So it works perfectly. So making kids pay attention is easier because the discipline is taken care of by the parents. So just a sharing that it's possible for any age to have a distance learning, but again, extra effort for the parents.
It is, and yeah, I mean the parents are finding it quite challenging themselves, and if they're expected to go to work, then they need schools, right?
Yeah. But
I just want to bring up this point because Neil was sort of saying in the chat there about how they follow up about students and stuff, send emails to parents and students, that kind of thing. And then someone said, well, what if that's not working? Well, it kind of feels like the same students that weren't doing the work when you were physically in the classroom are probably very similar students that are not doing the work when they're at home. So it's that kind of thing, that the same thing kind of occurs. You can only do so much as a school, isn't it? So it's like, well, I'm going to call your parent 2 or 3 times. If your parent can't get on board, I can't do any more. So it's that kind of thing where you just think, yeah, we can only do so much, and then we just got to let it go. But keep paying them fees, totally worth it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think ultimately, if you've let the parents know that the work isn't of the standard expected, they are supervising those students, and ultimately they're the ones. Unfortunately, we can't send Ofsted to their house to inspect the parents' performance of their supervision.
Yeah, because we totally rate Ofsted.
We have a conversation from Adam. I've sent loads of emails to parents that have gone unanswered because a lot of parents are not.
But that's teaching. You're always going to get that element of parents who are just not on board. I deliver them to you. What more do you want? That's just not. That's just the way it is. Can we answer a question about because we're talking about what's going on now, but I want to sort of move forward to the new normal. So what are we going to keep? What are we going to keep?
Yes.
If we ever get back into the classroom.
Yes. We're still learning from this setup. Everyone is learning. It's also based on the different it's different from each level. So we don't have a solution that will fit for everyone, because the upper level, they have a different solution for that. They have a different setup. They are more the upper level is more mature. So I think it's easier. I don't know if it's really easier, because I just recall one of the photos provided by Sethi in the chat room for Thursday PD. One student is pretending to be reconnecting, so he renamed his Google Meet name as reconnecting, so as not to participate in the class discussion. So these kids are getting smarter.
Yeah. I like the idea of looking more into, because some people are saying that they've had students that have not reared their head at all in the classroom, but are really thriving with online learning, are really taking it on board, and they're doing it. They may not be turning up to your classes online, but they're still getting the work done, and they seem to be enjoying that type of learning. And does it mean that when we come back to school that, I know it worked for you, but that's not what we're doing anymore? It would be great if we are able to accommodate. Everyone says we personalize the learning, but if we were able to follow that up in some way and say, right, for you guys, that really works, so let's see if we can try and continue that. I really want to hand it back. I know that some schools have been saying, right, you manage your week. We're going to set you the work at the beginning of the week. Can you manage your time during the week to meet these challenges and tasks? I would love it if that could continue when people went back to school. Especially in secondary, we talk a lot about how we're teaching them to be independent. We're teaching them to think for themselves, but we actually have a set timetable, and we're making them tune in at particular times and stuff like that. I'd like us to put our money where our mouth is and say, actually, could you come to school? The teachers have set the work. Could you actually plan your week? That would be great.
I love that idea too, allowing them more ownership of their learning and build life skills, not just, this is where you have to go, when you have to go, and when you have to do it, but we're empowering them, like Adrianna said, to take ownership of their whole day and allow them to get excited about their learning adventure at school for the week. I love that. I love that. Adrianna, you're full of brilliant ideas today. Not that that's unlike other weeks.
I've thought a bit about this. I've thought a little bit about this.
So we're teaching our kids to be more responsible, right? So it's a life skill to be more responsible, to manage your time very well. If not, the consequences. You will suffer the consequences. So it's a good thing. There are good things about this online learning and this kind of setup. But
I did see a comment about the PTC. I don't know if it was made in jest, but I'm going to do an online PTC soon. And it sounds like a good solution for the parents because they don't have to drag themselves away from their work early and things like that. But I don't know if it works in how well it works. So has anybody done an online conference yet?
We've done phone ones, so we do phone ones every few weeks to touch base with parents. But I like your idea of online, like that visual connection as well. That could be good.
I'm going to say apparently, I think we bought a PTC system and they've rolled it out, and it might actually work. So in a few weeks' time, I'll let you know if it was a success or not. But also, apparently, the thing about the system is you get 5 minutes. It actually counts it down. So the parents will get cut off after the 5 minutes and it moves straight onto the next parent, like a chat roulette system. So it'll be interesting. Let us know in the comments, by the way, those of you with experience.
Like parent-teacher conference dating. Right, let's talk through it. Thank you. Next. So this is, so see here, it's like Adam's saying about how the grade 6 and 8 don't know how to plan their week that well. And these are the very skills that we're trying to equip them. We're an IB school. We're trying to get them to be doing this. So this has been quite a wake-up call in terms of, what skills are we giving our students and are we empowering them or not? I never feel like we are. I never feel like we're telling them when to eat. We're telling them when to go home, when to come in, when you will see that teacher for that particular thing. And how is that empowering people? We're just creating people who just get churned out of the system and then into the work system.
I think it is also even things like toilet breaks and things like that. It's the thing is that there are certain kids who would be perfectly lovely and trustworthy if they were given these things, and then there are little toe rags who you shouldn't give them an inch. And I think we're coming on that classic problem, isn't it? The great kids and the kids.
But wouldn't you focus on the ones who can do it, and then that gives you time to spend on the other ones who just don't have that capability?
And also we're professionals, and people trust us to be able to make good judgments about our students, right? So we're going to be able to find those students that are abusing this newfound freedom, and we can work with them, more closely. That's not an issue. So we set the ground rules for everybody that, you're now free to plan, you're now empowered, go and show us your journey, etc. And then when we find that there are people struggling with that ownership, so we help them. It's as simple as that.
Mind you, I think a good point has just come up here, because there's so much to cover across all subjects. I mean, I think that's something the UK is talking about now, is that the curriculum is far too much in terms of the amount of content, which, these days, a lot of it's just a Google away, isn't it? I think that's just,
I'm going to quote that in my book, James. It's just a Google away. I love that.
Yeah, I may have said that a few times as the computer science teacher, saying if it's a Googleable question, you shouldn't be asking it.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not saying it as a positive. I say that as a head coach. Why are you asking me to do that when, sometimes I feel like making a video that shows me Google searching it and then sending them that link.
Remind me after the show to send you a nice little video that one of the Google trainers set up, Adrianna. You'll have a great kick out of that. Google searches.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love the Google a day as well. I think that should be essential professional development for teachers, because if you can Google something in 10 seconds, it ain't something we should be particularly teaching. As knowledge you have
Adam
to
says, Adam says, is Google a noun too?
Yeah. I love that, Adam. He's on it. You're like Ken Robinson today. The one thing I will say against dear old Ken is that you do have to teach the basics of reading and writing so that you can actually do the Google first. As somebody who's taught primary, you definitely got to do that first.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
But it's a skill now that we all educators should know how to Google. So we should be able to ask the right question. So if the answer can be found in Google, it means that you're not giving the right question or asking the right question, right? Especially,
it's a really good point, because also when these students graduate from school and go out into the real world to get jobs, is the employer actually going to sit there and say, what can you tell me about XYZ? Or is he going to say, what can you do with XYZ that you found? Because it's about how can we use and utilize our resources rather than just roll off, content and facts and percentages. And
yeah, I mean, there was a very funny video about this person who turned up to interview and says, I can pass exams, and that's all the kid could do.
Well, at least it's one thing he could do well, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, now, I think this question posted right now, what have we learned from this distance learning that will change our practice going forward? So we've been here for several months now for some, but more than 2 months for all of us, I think. So how can we improve this one? How can we improve doing this distance learning? What else can we improve?
I mean, I think for me, one of the things I've learned is that there's a few new tools and a few things, but also just chill out a bit, relax a bit, actually take a breath between your lessons, because they've spaced them out, and I think that's brilliant. And they've made the times later and things like that, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, if we can start at 9:30 on this online learning, why don't we start at 9:30, admittedly there's traffic, but maybe we could start at 9:30 and run a little later. It's nice to wake up in daylight, things like that, but also just pace yourself. You don't always need to be high energy, because the kids need a more gentle approach, especially when you're online. But I think that's true in the classroom as well. Is that sometimes
are you saying I'm too much, James?
You ain't seen me in full flow. I can be a bit super energy some days. Catching me at 9 o'clock at night is the lowest you've possibly seen me. I'm sure, Gary, you've seen me high energy and you know the difference.
Yes, yes. I agree with James. I think this is the thing that we have to realize, or most of the teachers should realize, that we have to relax. Because I saw some teachers doing everything that they can to push all the lessons online. But take note that teaching kids face to face or in real world and pushing everything online is different, because you have a different length of time. You have a different mechanics. When you're
Mm,
online, it has to be reduced. But a lot of
mm,
teachers are pushing everything online. That is why they are so stressed at the end of the day.
mm.
So, good suggestion, James. You have to relax. Don't push everything, because we have to cut down our lessons. We have to reduce our lessons. If we can teach 1 to 10 for one meeting, maybe when it's online it has to be 1 to 5 only,
Mm.
because there's a big difference between face to face and online. Good
I think the
suggestion.
other thing is actually trusting students to do some reading. I think
Yeah.
that's something that is definitely, and now that's more secondary. But I've found that actually flipping the learning and saying, right, you're going to do the reading, and in the class we are going to ask you
Correct.
questions.
Yeah.
Whereas unfortunately, sometimes perhaps we gave the kids too much of a safety net, and whereas now we have to test that way. It's not a choice.
Yeah.
As educators, we can measure if they read the materials in advance, because during the
Mm,
discussion, who's participating, who's not participating. So as teachers, we can test our students. We can see if you're,
mm.
especially for the tenured teachers, they know that students are doing their job, if or not, right?
And I think
So
something that's worked really well with distance learning to support that change when we go back is also the way of like marking and assessing. So for something that we've been trying to use a lot more is like that collaborative feedback during the lesson time, using like a Jamboard or a Google
mhm,
Doc or a Google Slide, but
mhm,
like allotting time in that online lesson period for feedback, and it allows the teacher to go in and give feedback at the same time as the students, cutting down on marking time afterwards. So I think we have to think about how can we help educators as well with their time, and I think that's one piece of it, is not only allowing students the time to give feedback to each other, which is an important skill, right, constructive feedback, but also to help the teachers out. So
Mm,
that's something
Yeah.
that I think I'm going to try
But
to
see,
encourage a lot more of.
mm.
but
I
that
mean, a
was the
few
beauty
years.
of Google Classroom. The beauty of that being introduced before distance learning was that you can set up your lesson, you can flip the classroom, you have all the materials for the students, so that when they're coming into class, they're ahead of the game. They're seeing you as the
Mm,
teacher as another tool. Like, yeah, I've seen the work. Now I've got some questions that I need you to answer, and that kind of thing. So we were finding, like in a previous school, that they'd set up their work on Google Classroom, and it was almost like, get on with it. My job's done. And it's like, no, no, no. It means it frees you up, teacher, so you can go around and support. You can go, do your online checking, that kind of thing. You can work with smaller groups. So that
yeah.
that mindset should have already hopefully been in place before distance learning. It's like, just like we're in class now, students, we've done a bit of the work beforehand. I'm a tool here if you need to use me. Otherwise, we are collaborating and working on feeding back and improving our work, that kind of thing. So it should have come into fruition, and people suddenly think, oh yeah, that's made a difference now to distance learning, hopefully.
But the nice thing is like you've been doing that, and I'm sure we've all been doing that for a while now. And although we train teachers, some teachers may take that approach, but there are still lots of educators, guys, in the schools that I've seen that are still not taking that on. But seeing the fruitfulness, as you said, Adrianna, of that power of that during distance learning, we're hoping to harness that and say, right, let's see more of that coming back, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary's already seen this because we did a thing about distance learning in the Philippines. And one of the key concepts I've talked about, and you guys have just alluded to, is this idea of front loading. So you do more planning up front, but that means you do a lot less marking. And that's the key thing. especially in distance learning, it's really reinforced it. If you do the front loading, you prepare your lessons well, you prepare your presentations well, then actually it goes much more smoothly. Whereas if you don't do that, you're doubly punished online. And here's a little thing just to show you what was going on here. And I think I may have given away the answer, but that's the difference between Mr. A and Mr. B, is the Mr. A front loaded, did the work, planned the lessons, got the auto marking working ahead of time, whereas the other one didn't do much and then had to do tons of marking and didn't get such good results.
Yeah.
True story, by the way, true story.
Yeah, agree. So this may be one of the things that we have to consider as an educator, that we have to prepare. And so we, as an educator, facilitate the learning. We don't give everything to our student in the class, but we can make use of the flip classroom, wherein we give responsibility to our students, and then so we can have more productive, substantial discussion during the synchronous class or even in the classroom itself, right? Okay, so we have here from exactly at Adrianna. I love those lessons where students get the choice to work independently and you get the focus on the kids that need it. Okay, okay. So, any other additional info or insight about how do we get better in distance classroom? Oh, here is another. Is the school ready?
I think that one thing that I would like to work on to support is more flexibility. So I was having an interesting conversation with a PE teacher, and we were talking about how online learning looks a little different than it would for an English class or a maths class. And I know Tamina's on the call with us, who is a maths superstar at my school, so she can definitely, pitch in to comment on this. But and Tamina and I were also talking about that, how some of her lessons, it's like building blocks of steps in math. So she needs to be present to give that online support where the students can, draw on the Jamboard or share their screen, and she can give feedback on the equation as they go. Whereas someone like PE really can benefit from pre-recorded lessons where students can take their phone or their mobile device outside and just play the video while they're exercising without having to need to stop and answer about what they're doing during the PE lesson. So I think there's an important point about flexibility across different subjects, and that we have to be open to adapt to different ways of providing a lesson online, basically.
Oh, we have a comment here from Josephine. Distance learning will make teachers more creative in preparing lessons, and for the students, they are also boost their innate skills on how to deal with online interaction.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had some really entertaining lessons, and I think all of us have tried new tools and tried to keep it interesting in one way or another. I think that's very true.
Yes, yes. So, okay, it's already almost few minutes before 10. So, or in my case.
Same here.
So, any final words? Because going back to the new normal. So, I just can't imagine how to do that. So, how can we safeguard ourselves, our kids? Go ahead.
I really think that getting input and involving the entire community will get more buy-in for whatever the decisions are at the end before we go back. So ask educators, ask admin, ask the parents, are you willing to go back if we have XYZ done in September? And we would have an idea of the numbers going in and therefore be able to prepare and, give suggestions and ask parents and teachers, what do you recommend? Take as much input as you can. And I think it would really support the school leadership in making the right decisions for their communities.
I mean, I think the most important thing is to make sure that school remains a safe place. And too much of what I've heard from the politicians and so on is not about the safety of the students and the teachers and everybody else in the community, but about, we must get the economy rolling, we must do this, we must do that. But no, actually, you've got no economy if everybody's dead. And I think that's the bottom line. And we need to make sure that we put the safety of the community as a whole, because every member is connected to a school is a member of that community, and I would like to think is a valued member of that community.
Yeah, but you do have to balance it. It's not as if we are one cog in a big wheel. Because I mean, like, especially here in Malaysia, I'm very mindful of the fact that, I don't want to go to work until I feel safe, but I have the luxury to do that because I am getting paid while I'm at home delivering online. So, I can afford that. But I know from the economy here that we can't stay locked up. That's the reality of it. People are starving. So somehow the economy needs to get churning. I know it's not the same in the UK and perhaps, might be the same in America. So I do understand that we are a cog in a bigger wheel. But of course, we're not talking about the big wheel. We're just talking about our little blinkered bit. So yeah, we can talk about that. But I worry about like don't worry, but like the canteen workers in our school. Are they being looked after while we're in lockdown? The security guards that are there every day, we forget about them, but thank you very much for running the school, that kind of thing. I hope you're being paid well to be doing that. Our cleaners who are not in at the moment, are they being looked after? Because they're part of our community in school, but as we know, there's different levels in a community, isn't there? So, they, from their perspective, they're probably desperate for the school to get up and running so that they can get back to some sort of normality in their life. And the parents, oh my goodness, the parents, again, I said it before, we should all be getting a ticker tape parade. They should be shoving gifts and clutching money and throwing it at us. But I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it is about getting that safety right and managing that risk appropriately, because you can't. It's great powers, great responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to go back to the new normal because we don't know what are the real pros and cons of going back to school or keep online learning. So good luck to us. Good luck to us.
Yeah, there is that.
I think that
no, you go, lovely.
I was just going to say that it's been really great, though, to share some ideas together today. I mean, I have a couple now extra ideas that I'd like to take back to my school. And maybe if we can pull all our ideas together, maybe schools have a chance, So it might be an interesting idea to have like round 2 of this in another month or two, just to see, what else has come up and where we can move forward.
Yeah, it's good thought.
I think basically if we can all resist going back until lots of other places have done it and what they've done wrong, we know not to do.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that really didn't work over there. We're not doing that one then.
Correct.
Yeah. And in fact, we probably should be looking to Hong Kong because they're probably thinking about opening again. So I think they're the ones who are the front runners of this.
Yeah, I was also I don't know if Japan has already opened up their schools again. I don't know. But I didn't really hear them locking down, so I don't know how they are doing it. I'm curious about how they
they got told to open their schools, or that they opened because it was a new school year, and then the government announced that they were closing like 2 days later. Like they probably could have announced that before they bothered opening. Just like when they closed it, and the teachers were basically cleared out that same day. Like there was no prep time or anything. Yeah. And they talked about the emotional side of it, especially because it was coming near the end of their school year, as it is coming up for a lot of us if we're closing sort of June, July. The graduations are a big deal for them. They didn't have that. Just being able to say goodbye to the students, they didn't have that. So, there was lots of emotion about there being no closure, and that will be the same, perhaps for the end of this year. Teachers moving on, they don't get that closure. Students don't get their graduations. They don't get their farewell parties,
Yeah. And as I say, those wanting to go to university, they have to really think about whether they want to start this year as well. if they want to go elsewhere.
Oh,
So a lot of food for thought there.
yeah.
I guess it's time to close it up.
Yeah.
Any final
So-
thoughts, Gary?
Well, just stay safe and take care, everyone, because
Yeah.
we don't know what will be the effect of this. We don't really know if it's still there or it's been settled already. Okay. So for now, bye, everyone. See you
Stay
next.
safe, everyone.
Bye bye.